Jonathan Pollard, espionage, did a lot of time in jail, accused of spying for the state of Israel while he was a naval intelligence officer. Since gotten out, had him on a couple of weeks ago, kind of went through what happened. Now he's on again. He's got the finger on a pulse of what's going on out there. Jonathan Pollard, welcome. Let's see if we can get your audio. We got him, Tyler. Jonathan, go ahead and say something. See if we got
Hi,
it.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we got your audio, Jonathan. Very
good.
nice. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for being with us. Okay, excellent. Listen, I want to get to a couple. We're going to get to how you were treated in prison in a minute, but I want to get to a couple things right now. Let's start with the Gaza. Let's start with Gaza, the armistice, whatever you want to call it, the ceasefire breaking down. Now we've got more dead. We've got a peace commission that has not really taken hold there. Hamas is not disarmed, as was promised. What is going on? Israel firing back immediately. So is this thing about to collapse, Jonathan Pollard?
Yeah, that's the simple answer. Yes. I mean, it never really took hold to begin with. With Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad categorically refusing to disarm and getting support, I might add, from Mr. Kushner and Mr. Whitkoff behind the scenes, with Turkey and Qatar playing a kind of a double game that, well, they'll help kind of put Hamas's heavy weaponries in storage. The whole thing just wasn't going to work to begin with. The plan itself, we have to be honest about this. The 21-point peace plan was never going to work. And this current Board of Peace is an absolute unmitigated disaster. I don't know who was smoking what when this plan came up, but it has absolutely zero chance of succeeding. As far as the attacks that went on just recently, this has been going on almost every day. It's just the press doesn't really report it because it's not really exciting. I mean, Hamas sends a guy to cross the so-called yellow line to test, to see if we've got that sector covered. And so somebody dies. Nobody really cares about this, and they try it again the next day. Usually with something that just happened, there's been a lot of attempts made to inflict some pretty heavy casualties on us. And when that occurs, we have a whole target bank ready to go. And so we target as precisely as we can Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad leaders. The business with Rafah, for example, if you ask the people here, both on the street and in the military and security communities, what they thought about it, there's one word that just keeps coming up all the time: obscene. We were literally told that Rafah was going to open without any consultation with us at all. And we were told quite bluntly and openly and publicly, which is dangerous in this part of the world, get over it. Well, we're not getting over it. And we fully expect the crossing point, the Rafah crossing point, to collapse. We've done everything we can to ensure that military equipment doesn't come into Gaza, and Hamas leaders don't leave. The Egyptians are playing a terrible game in this matter, and it's something that I wish, in particular, Lindsey Graham would pay a lot more attention to. The Egyptians had the control of the border at Rafah before October 7th, and they allowed literally hundreds of tunnels, some big enough to accommodate trucks, to cross the border, for payments under the table. The Egyptians basically allowed Hamas to arm with Qatari money. At the same time, right now, they have violated almost every aspect of the Camp David Accords in terms of, especially in terms of troop limitations in Sinai. So these are the people that we're supposed to deal with right now on the Board of Peace, and as part of this 21-point peace plan put forward by President Trump.
So your view is that this thing is a toothless tiger. It has no, I think we lost.
Video. Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
you got it back.
Well, we're having a pretty bad
I tell you what, Jonathan,
that
I'm going
impact
to,
on video
I'm gonna
around
take-
here. So we just have to kind
I'm
of
going to take a
put
quick,
up with it.
I'll take a quick break and get rid of your video, and I'm going to just call you up, and we'll go from there. I think that's going to be a better option, if you will. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, Tyler, go ahead and play 9 here, Mike Johnson
Back
on
via video.
Oh, he's back. Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Plan
Joe.
is concerned.
Okay, we got your back.
Okay, good. The Egyptians, as I said, are playing a double game. And on the one hand, the Trump administration is offering a huge arms deal as part of, continuing bribe to be for the Egyptians to be part of the Camp David Accords and presumably this peace plan. And at the same time, the Egyptians are playing ball with the Chinese. They have an arms deal ready to go with the Chinese involving airplanes like the J-20 that are stealth fighters. You have to ask yourself a fundamental question in all of this. And I've asked people here, have you brought this up with the Americans? And the answer is they don't want to hear it. And the question is, for a country like Egypt, which is an economic basket case, totally, why in the world are we facilitating these massive arms deals? I mean, from a business standpoint, I understand this, but it makes absolutely no sense from a regional geopolitical standpoint. We're arming a country to the teeth that publicly admits they're getting ready when they get all the new equipment in to go to war with us. They're very clear about this. And they're supposed to be part of the Board of Peace and part of this 21-point peace plan. It just isn't going to work. And so the question I have for Senator for Lindsey Graham is a straightforward one. Why in the world are we offering military equipment to a country, a sophisticated military equipment to a country like Egypt that's having exercises, aerial exercises with China? You want to sell equipment to the Egyptians and then have the Chinese come in and test their equipment against it? And we had this problem with Turkey with the S-400s, which is why we didn't, sell them the F-35. It's the same thing here. So again, as far as Gaza, getting back to Gaza is concerned, we are dealing, except for the Emiratis, who have been playing a straightforward, constructive game the whole time. Except for them, every other country that's joined up with the Board of Peace or is signed on to the 21-point peace deal for Gaza is a problem. Turkey, Qatar, Pakistan. I mean, these are countries that we shouldn't have anything to do with. And I'm really sorry to say this, but Bibi Netanyahu, I think I mentioned this before on the show, is largely to blame for the mess that we're in right now. He never articulated an Israeli day after that would be good for us and consequently good for the United States as well. And then when the president unleashed or unlocked rather all the military equipment that Joe Biden had embargoed and then told Bibi, get on with it, Bibi didn't do it. So I think the blame in this matter for what may end up being the collapse of this peace process in Gaza. Actually, it's not a peace process. What it is a real estate deal. That's what it is. It's a transactional real estate deal that has absolutely no relationship at all to any of the issues that are roiling this area. This is why when you get people like Jared Kushner and Whitkoff involved in something like this, what in the world do they know about the geopolitical issues here? They don't. Absolutely not. Kushner got a bribe of $2 billion or more from the Saudis at the end of the first Trump administration. And Whitkoff, well, he's just basically a paid agent of Qatar. So why would you expect guys like this to come up with a viable day after solution for Gaza? The president initially had it right. And what was that? Get rid of the indoctrinated, propagandized people from Gaza. Just get rid of them, send them elsewhere. Have the Israelis destroy Gaza, and then we'll see what happens at that point. And honestly, the only way this is going to work to our advantage in Israel is if we finally bite the bullet and just say we're going to annex the region. That way, we don't have a spoiler between us and the Egyptians, mainly Hamas.
What is the Egyptians' goal here? What is the goal of the Egyptians? What do they ultimately want here? Opening up that pass. What's their objective? Jonathan Pollard with us.
I think Egypt's objective in this matter is to effectively take over Gaza. If you read carefully their public war plans, which they've been very open about, they haven't hidden anything. It requires, their main war plan against Israel requires Hamas control over Gaza, to present a flanking threat, if you will, to Israel. A threat that, as we already saw on October 7th, with the urban subterranean fortresses that they have, would tie up a lot of Israeli forces that would otherwise be directed against an Egyptian invasion. The second point that the Egyptians are always making is that in the event they have effective control over Gaza, Egyptian armored units can basically race unopposed straight up the coastal road to jumping off points minutes away from Ashdod and Ashkelon, two very major Israeli cities, and a hook to the right to Beersheba. This is, which is our major city in the Negev. Mm-hmm. The Egyptian game plan in all of this is to ensure that we have no control over Gaza whatsoever, and that we don't return to an October 7th, but we return to a date long before that, when the Egyptians basically had control over Gaza. We here have to be very careful in terms of taking at face value platitudes about peace issued by the Egyptian government in particular. They have done nothing to prepare their people for peace with us. Quite the contrary. Egypt is one of the most bellicose anti-Israel countries in the Middle East, and they've been waging diplomatic war against us ever since Camp David was signed. So the Egyptians, even during the war in Gaza, could have saved a lot of lives. And people just don't want to talk about this for some reason. Egypt was in a position to open their border at Rafah and allow Palestinian civilians to leave. And under international humanitarian law, they were obliged to do that.
Right.
And they have now in the Sinai 2 or 3 places which appear to be settlement zones that are under construction for the Gazans. So it's possible that if enough pressure is put on the Egyptians by the White House, for example, in the form of economic support. It's possible that they may just open up the gates, but it all depends on President Trump. He has to literally put Sisi's feet to the fire. And
so far they've not done that. In fact, there's been no
no,
comment
he
on,
won't.
on
He
opening
won't.
up this pass. But I think you're right. I mean, Jared Kushner, who I know very well, and Whitkoff. I mean, these are basically real estate developers. That's what
That's
they
it.
are. I mean, that's what That's
And if
not
you
that's
look
not
at
a
the
bad
plans,
thing. It's like saying, well, John's basically a radio TV talk show host. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not qualified to go negotiate a peace settlement uh, between the Palestinians, Gaza, Hamas, and Egypt. I'm not qualified to do that, right?
this is
I mean,
insane.
I'm qualified to
I mean,
interview you on the air. So the whole thing is it's almost becoming like, okay, there's a non-serious aspect about it. Does that make sense? What I'm saying, Jonathan?
if you were kind about the situation, you would say there's a non-serious side to this. The problem is that we still have an opportunity to diffuse the situation in Gaza in a way that will buttress um, both Israel's defense, America's defense, and those elements in the Middle East that basically want to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood. But the way things are going right now, it's not just a question of it being unserious. It's dangerous, flat out dangerous. So this is the problem. Is there an opportunity to pull back right now? I hate to say this, but the only way that's going to happen is if somebody other than Bibi Netanyahu takes over here and just goes rogue. That's the only thing that's going to work. And the president likes, tough guys like Erdogan of Turkey and Kim Jong-il over in North Korea and even Putin in Russia. He likes tough guys. And that's not a description that would fit Bibi Netanyahu at all.
Time.
So is there an
Let's get to the Iranian situation. President Trump putting out a massive armada in the Persian Gulf, getting closer to, right off the shores of Iran. We've got different reports, Jonathan. Up to 30,000 protesters might have been executed. That number could be 15, could be 50. No one really
it was
knows.
it's a
We don't
lot.
know. It's a lot,
Right.
right? It's a lot. What do you see President Trump doing there, and what do you think he ought to do, if anything?
I think it would be very dangerous to predict what the president may or may not be willing to do. I know that behind the scenes, and I have this on very good authority, the Saudis have warned the president that if he backs down, now remember with the Saudis, they have a public position, which is, against any kind of involvement, military attack against Iran, and they have a private position with the administration, which says the following: if you back down now, you will create more trouble than you could ever imagine. Okay, that's the bottom line. So I am assuming that saner, more rational heads in the administration will prevail. And that doesn't mean Jared Kushner or Steve Whitkoff's involvement at all, or Tom Barrack's involvement at all. These are not people that should be relied upon for anything except a real estate deal. I think the president is playing for time right now. I think he is. I think regardless of what the attack consists of, I keep looking at a place called Chabahar, which is an Iranian port on the Arabian Sea. And it would be a perfect place for an amphibious landing by Marines, U.S. Marines, to bring in the Shah's son, the crown prince, and to actually create a new government. The targets right now that I'm aware of basically include everything having to do with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and their auxiliary, the Basij. By the way, American bombers escorted by Israeli fighters could have put an end to this regime weeks ago before untold numbers of protests.
Okay, looks like we're freezing up again. Let's
Everybody.
let's do this. I'm going to go by phone here. So let's get Jonathan off of screen. We're going to take a very quick break, about 1 minute. You can run Mike Johnson. This is 9. Take a listen here, talking about defunding DHS, and I'm going to get Jonathan by phone. I think we'll have a clearer connection.
There's nothing I can do about that.
And joining me now is Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. Speaker Johnson, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Always great to be with you. Thanks.
It is great to have you. And as we sit here today, we are in the midst of a partial government shutdown. So I want to start right there. The latest reports are that you've spoken to Leader Hakeem Jeffries, that he has made it clear that you don't have Democrat support to reopen the government. So let me put this bottom line question to you. Are you confident that the government will reopen on Monday with Republican votes? Do you have enough Republican support?
Well, let's say I'm confident that we'll do it at least by Tuesday. We have a logistical challenge of getting everyone in town, and because of the conversation I had with Hakeem Jeffries, I know that we've got to pass a rule and probably do this mostly on our own. I think that's very unfortunate. Here's what's happened. You know, the House and Senate appropriators worked very well together, bicameral, bipartisan, committee-led process, especially after the 43-day shutdown, the longest in U.S. history last fall. No one wanted to put that pain on the American people again. The Democrats forced it. We were insistent that we would not allow that to happen. But, you know, I tip my hat to everybody, appropriators in both parties who got this together. After the Senate acted over the weekend, we will now have 11 of 12 separate appropriations bills approved by both chambers. Because they modified our package, they've sent it over a little differently, which means we've got to address the bills again. So they're going to separate the Department of Homeland Security bill. Our intention is by Tuesday to fund all agencies of the federal government except for that one, and then we'll have 2 weeks of good faith negotiations to figure it out.
And just bottom line, you think you have enough Republican votes to reopen the government by Tuesday?
Yeah, because Republicans.
We're going to get Jonathan Pollard. Yeah, we're going to get Jonathan Pollard here by phone, which I think will be a better setup for us. Jonathan, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite well.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do it this way, Tyler. I think we got the audio by phone. You can just put his picture up. Jonathan Pollard with us. Everyone knows, accused of espionage, convicted of that in the United States, spying for Israel. We talked about that for, I think it was an hour and 15 minutes last week, about some of the very sketchy details that went on there. That's why we like having him back. But Jonathan, an interesting theory about what the president should do in Iran, bring back the Shah's son, do an amphibious thing. But that would mean regime change. That would mean boots on the ground. That would mean the U.S. would have to go in there and topple the government. I mean, is that what you're advocating?
I don't know. Basically, we have enough. I'm still confused with the pronouns. The U.S. still has enough, or will always have enough firepower to basically bring the regime down. And given the anger right now on the streets in Tehran, it's almost assured that if we can sever the command control between Khamenei and the Revolutionary Guards and among the Revolutionary Guard Corps units with electromagnetic pulse weapons and whatever else we have to turn their servers and their communication systems into bricks. If we can do that, and we have the equipment, I mean, look what happened in Venezuela. And that was just a minor demonstration of what the United States is capable of doing in terms of electromagnetic warfare. If we do that there, then the people rule the streets, because the Revolutionary Guard literally won't know what to do at that point. So as far as Charbahar is concerned, it's not a bridge too far, so to speak. We could land, the Marines could land there, take it over, bring the Crown Prince in. If the Iranians try to come down there, it's hundreds and hundreds of miles of open desert. And with American control of the air, it would be tantamount to suicide on their part. Again, as far as the regime is concerned right now, the ground is completely unsettled. Mm-hmm. And it would not take that much to bring the whole house of cards down. Mm-hmm. Regime change, if it's done properly, we didn't do it properly in Venezuela. It hasn't been done right. But if the United States can carry this off in Iran, it will change everything in the Middle East for the better. Now, not everybody supports the Shah's son, the Crown Prince. However, as a kind of titular head of state, he would be accepted as that. The rest of the country, well, unfortunately, for too many years, the United States has not been working on regime change. And so we really don't know what the day after in Iran is going to look like.
Right.
It could be complete chaos.
Right.
It could basically result in Iran, as we know it, going away with the Azerbaijanis in the north, breaking away and joining their Azerbaijani brothers across the border. The Arabs in Khuzestan in the south, where the oil is, could break off. The Baluchis could certainly break off. I mean, what we're looking at is the dissolution of the Persian-run Iran. We don't know. That's the problem. And people have to understand that unless you really devote a lot of time and effort and brains to something like this, you end up with someone like me saying, we just don't know what might happen.
Right.
And the same thing is happening in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we got Maduro. And that's good. Right. Because the guy deserves to be in prison. But as far as the rest of the country is concerned, no. I mean, you have this woman, Machado, who actually won the last election, just kind of being put on ice. And the attitude right now is, well, as long as, the Machado's government, the vice president, I'll put it that way, that's taken over. If she just plays ball in terms of the oil industry, okay, we can live with that. This is not how these things are done. Mm-hmm. It's just haphazard, and it's just not professional. Mm-hmm. What the military, U.S. military did was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And the United States government, the Trump administration, got that right. Okay, they got it right. But it's the messier part, the day after. No, they completely screwed up, completely. And so the situation in Iran will be even worse, because you've got a lot of blood that's been spilled. There's going to be a lot of revenge, a lot of payback that's demanded, and you've got a lot of guns that are loose. Right. And so, can we bring the Iranian government down, the mullahs down? I think the answer to that is yes. Mm-hmm. It's a qualified yes, but it's yes. The problem, though, is the day after in Iran. And the U.S. simply has not devoted enough time or resources to what that would look like. Would I like Iran fractured? It depends on who's taking over in Tehran.
Right.
I mean, if the Revolutionary Guard basically takes over in Tehran, then yeah, it's time to break the country up. There's no question about it. Just break it up. And that can actually be easily done. And the U.S. can continue pummeling the Revolutionary Guard in Iran until they're overthrown. It may take a little while, given their proclivity to just machine gun protesters on the street.
Mm-hmm.
But this issue of the day after, I've only read one or two analyses of what that might involve, and it just doesn't look good. So to answer your question, is a military strike on the table? I would say yes. Would this strike be sufficient to effect regime change? I think it would be effective enough to allow the protesters, the counter-revolutionaries, actually, they're not revolutionaries, they're counter-revolutionaries, to actually take over, or at least reduce the effectiveness of the mullahs to the point where something good might happen at that point.
Jonathan, look, I think Trump doesn't mess around. He's there. He's got an armada there, just like he did in Venezuela and the Caribbean. We all know that something is going to happen. It's an interesting theory that you put out, that you bring the Shah's son back, you get him into the country, and then let them handle it from there. But the
issue, John, the main issue is not a military issue. There isn't a country on the face of this planet right now that could withstand a full-on attack by the United States. There just isn't right now.
Right.
The Chinese are building a force to correct that idea. But right now, the U.S. is still the world's leading superpower.
Right.
So there's no question that the U.S. can destroy anything right now. The question, however, is what comes after. This is the $64,000 question, so to speak.
Right.
And that just has not been adequately thought out.
I mean,
Whitkoff's discussion with the Shah's son, with the Crown Prince, was disgraceful. It was disgusting.
What makes you say
that? From people inside who were actually eye and ear witnesses to the discussion between them. And Whitkoff is still carrying Qatar's water, so to speak. And the conversation was not what I would call a constructive one at all. I mean, everybody's polite superficially, just like, Machado. Everybody's polite superficially. But what's actually going on and what was said and what the plans are two totally different things from what the public reality or the public presentation was. So this is why you need the U.S. needed some very hard-headed people going back. Good Lord, you have to go back to Jimmy Carter's days to think about how are we going to get rid of these crazies, these Islamic Shiite fanatics in Tehran. But we haven't done that.
Right.
It was always, how can we get along with them?
Right.
How can we bring them on board? You don't want to bring these people on board. You want to get rid of them. Mm. They're a destabling influence, basically globally. Mm-hmm. And I would like to see a unified Iran emerge from this mess right now. But I'm afraid that may not happen because of the unpreparedness of the United States for the day after there.
Jonathan Pollard with us. Jonathan, let me ask you, I got a question that came in here from Steve in Virginia in the States. Steve says, looking forward to the Jonathan Pollard interview. If you have time, I'd appreciate it if you could ask him, what do you think of the recent sentencing of Jin Chao Wei, the Navy sailor who was given a 16-year jail term for espionage?
It's a joke.
Why?
He spied for an enemy state. Full stop. And the information that he provided, I don't care at what level. I don't care what it was. If it were unclassified information, I don't care. He spied for an enemy state. Now, legally, has China been declared an enemy state? No, not legally. But, and here's the big exception to this, it should have been a major objective of the administration to demonstrate that anyone who spies for China better not think about a life after prison, because there won't be one. This is what happens when you spy for an enemy state. In effect, an enemy state. And I don't know any Chinese spy. I don't know of one that in the United States that received an appropriate sentence for what they did. And again, I don't care what the information was. I don't care whether it was unclassified or top secret code word. I don't care. You cannot allow people to get away with this because, well, they're just going to spend some easy time, so to speak, and that'll be it. And then they're out, and the Chinese will take care of them. Mm-hmm. So my position on the sentencing of Chinese spies in the United States is shaped more by the need to deter future acts of Chinese espionage than it is addressing the actual crime that the defendant committed, if you understand my point. Mm-hmm. When you spy for an enemy state, and let's be clear about this, this is what China is. China is an enemy state. Okay, if that's the case, and you're basically slapping the wrist of everybody spying for them, where's the deterrence? Mm-hmm. Because one of these days, there's going to be a Chinese spy that will do as much damage as Aldrich Ames or John Walker or any of the other ones that spied for the Soviet Union. And then the U.S. will really be in trouble. And I'm not saying it hasn't happened at all.
Right.
So,
16 years seemed, especially in view of what you got for spying for Israel, which is now even in dispute based on our conversation a week ago, exactly what the extent of that was. But your sentence compared to 16 years in spying for the Chinese.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. Yeah. I mean,
it's a complete and utter joke. I mean, what's the next guy going to think who's got some real hot information?
Right.
Some really damaging information. I mean, look, in this case, was this guy actually indicted for intending to harm the United States? Mm-hmm. No. I mean, the law is very clear. You can either get an indictment like mine, in which there's no mention at all of intentional harm to the United States, mm-hmm. Okay? Or the other prong is, yes, intentional harm. So the question is, if anybody wants to understand what happened in this latest Chinese case, look at the indictment. Mm-hmm. Look at it. Because if that second prong was not there, then there's something very, very, very screwy going on with the prosecutors.
I have another question. This is a rumor that's bounced around for a long time, and I'm not really in the rumor mill business, but I got John. I just want to ask it. We have heard these rumors forever that Shimon Peres used his information against certain people to blackmail George H. Bush, which led to Bush wanting him to never get out of office. Now, this has been bounced around forever in the conspiracy world. I just figured I'd bring this up so you could put this to bed once and for all.
No, none of that happened, mostly because the only thing that I was involved with was basically replacing or facilitating the transfer of that information that was supposed to be transferred to Israel under the terms of the U.S.-Israel Intelligence Exchange Agreement. Now, there was a moment when I was in Paris talking to my boss, Rafi Eitan, not the chief of staff, but the head of the intelligence agency, LACOM, that I work for, where he asked me point blank. He said, I want to know the names of all the American spies in Israel. Okay, it's a valid counterintelligence question to ask. And I said no. For any number of reasons, I said no. He also wanted to know political dirt on Israeli politicians. And I also said no, not at all. That's the closest I ever came to kind of crossing the line between what I would call legitimate intelligence activity and something far less noble, if you will, which was dirty politics.
Right.
Now that happens here. I mean, wow, it happens in the United States just like in any other country.
Right.
Where some intelligence officers want to get politically compromised information that they can use, not just against foreign politicians, but against their own. So as far as all of these rumors that I've heard, in the business we call it rumor intelligence, you have to be very careful in terms of asking why someone would come up with this in the absence of any corroborating information. Mm-hmm. And there just hasn't been any type of information that you could bank on that would confirm something like this. So no, I never. I mean, I never witnessed or even heard of anything like this being done. You know,
I just put that to bed because that's been, as you know, that's been floating around for a number of years. I never trade in this stuff, but a couple people mentioned it to me. Hey, why don't you ask Jonathan that? So we'll get it off the table. I got 5 minutes. I want you to, in that 5 minutes closing here, talk about the way you were treated in prison, which was different from your normal prisoners. You weren't treated very well in a U.S. prison. Everybody gets upset when, you know, something happens to an illegal if they're not treated well. What went down there? You got 5 minutes.
It actually started before I was formally imprisoned. Shortly after my arrest, it became very clear that there were certain people in the government, certain elements, that wanted me to help them destroy the American Jewish leadership, decapitate the American Jewish leadership. And they presented me with a list of Jewish leaders that they wanted me to implicate in my espionage activities. And I want to say right off the bat, no one, either within the government or without, had anything to do with me in my activities. I made it. And I saw this list and I realized what it was. And some of the people on that list were actually calling for my head. Okay, so it could have been very easy for me if I wanted to retaliate. Just implicate them. I wasn't asked for corroborating information. I wasn't asked to take a polygraph. I wasn't asked to testify against them in court. None of that. Just put a check next to their names. And I said no. The other problem that I had was that people realized very quickly, including lawyers for the then Vice President, Vice President Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, that I knew about Iran-Contra. They didn't know to what extent, but that I was aware, for example, of one of the equipment exchanges that had originated in the vice president's office, not Ollie North's office, but in the vice president's office. And when I was asked, what do you know about this particular ship that was involved with it, I kind of naively said, well, I know everything. And what I meant was I know everything about the ship. They kind of reached another conclusion that I knew everything about the vice president. So I ended up being renditioned. That's the only way I can put it. I was taken up into the mountains somewhere because my ears were popping and it was freezing cold. So somewhere up in the mountains, maybe Pennsylvania, West Virginia, I have no idea. And for 6 weeks, well, let's just say right now, I'm basically 100% disabled. My back was broken in 4 places. I have a plate in my head. A lot of my joints were broken, and I was raped for 6 weeks. Okay? And I realized at that point that even if I did what they wanted me to do by signing this document or identifying participants who had nothing to do, falsely accusing people of having a part in my espionage, they'd never let me live. They couldn't, because I mean, just you could look at me and you could tell that, this confession on my part was not extracted voluntarily, and it would result in a lot of questions. So luckily, my lawyers finally found out where I was, and they managed to bring me back to the DC jail. The behavior, now that I know that Elder James had successfully associated me with the then ongoing destruction of the American intelligence operation in Russia, in Soviet Union. I've told people candidly that I would have treated somebody like me a lot worse than the way I was treated. That I know doesn't sound very good, but that's just the nature of the business. So, yeah, I was treated pretty badly. The problem is that when it became known that right. I wasn't responsible for what Ames had done, the behavior towards me didn't change. So, what is my situation now? Well, I'm crippled, basically. But that's just the name of the game.
You were taken out of a U.S. prison. You were taken somewhere in the cold where your ears popped to an undisclosed location by ostensibly the U.S. government, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, an element of the government, yeah.
Somebody took you out of the Washington jail and brought you somewhere else, blindfolded, ears popped, and then for 6 weeks to get you...
Took me apart.
They took you apart, which included beatings and having you raped on a consistent basis to get you to sign
cooperate.
Thank you. To get you to cooperate. You didn't break. And then after the beatings and the rapes after 6 weeks, the lawyers got you back to the D.C. jail.
Right. And if you look at my record, there is a gap of about 6 weeks. Just 1 second. There's about a gap of 6 weeks of where nobody knows where I was. In fact, when I was later in prison, a regular prison, I asked to see my record, specifically for those dates. And my case manager, took out the file, and she looked at it, and she said, there's a gap. I don't know where you were. It's not here. So I said, well, isn't that kind of unusual? And she closed the file and she said, so unusual, I don't want to continue this conversation. So that's the situation. I don't know of one enemy agent that's ever been treated that way. I mean, there was a Cuban spy that was held down in Florida that was from the DGI, their CIA, that had blood on his hands. And they allowed him to stay in a hotel and be with his wife so that they could have children. Okay? The difference couldn't be starker than that. So,
Jonathan Pollard, we're out of time. The next, I got to go to Iowa next week, but we'll have you on again in a couple of weeks. There'll be more developments. Certainly in Iran, there'll be a lot more developments around the world.
correct.
I mean, all this stuff is pretty counter to the way the United States runs its
Counter?
penal system. I mean,
Counter?
it's
No.
like, it's incredible.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. When the United States, after the war of, on terror started, just read about rendition, that whole notion of rendition. And what happened to me was kind of a preview of what was done routinely later. You won't find any records. You'll have denial. Nobody wants to go back and explain, conduct that just doesn't seem un-American. But, if you want to know something about un-American behavior, ask the Filipinos that lived during the insurrection in the early 1900s or the Native Americans. I mean, it's just, this is reality. It's not good or bad. It just is what it is. That's all.
Just fact.
Just fact. That's all. It's just fact. Countries or elements within countries will do what they think is in the national interest, regardless of how it varies or it's diametrically opposed to what the country stands for. I mean, we got to be big boys and girls about this.
Yeah.
That's reality.
Jonathan Pollard, I don't know how you've done this, how you've survived with everything that's gone on in your life, but thank you for being with us today. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. And let's pray right now for the men and women, servicewomen that are going probably into harm's way with Iran very soon.
All right, sir. Thank you. Jonathan Pollard.
Bye.